How we all doing? Great, great. I am excited to be in Austin for this momentous day, right? What are we going to experience but a total solar eclipse? So exciting. And there will be a team of men that will take home the NC2A championship trophy today. Go Boilermakers. My son is an alma mater. And today marks the month that my dad passed 5 years ago. And my dad, Wendell, he was full of advice. And I remember this time I was sitting at the kitchen table. I had just graduated university. And he comes up to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he says, "Son, choose wisely. The job you take will be something you'll be working with for decades to come. 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, get ready for the grind." I'm like, okay. Now, Wendell was a frontline engineer in the aerospace industry for 30 plus years, day in and day out. And I just don't think he could imagine the dramatic change that is happening in work and the jet force movement that is about to come. As a futurist, the one thing that I felt more acutely in the past several years is that just how intense and how accelerated this environment has become. It's almost physical, like you feel it in your gut on a daily basis, just how fast everything is moving. So what have we learned? 64% of employees do not have enough time and energy to get their job done, right? And the primary cause for this time and energy drain is searching for information, insufficient meetings, and just drudgery around work. 57% of the time spent is on communicating and coordinating, while only 47% of their time was focused on creation, deep thinking, and collaboration. The volume of data, emails, chats, I don't know about you, it is just overwhelming. It is just coming faster than we as humans can actually process and keep up with. And we call this digital debt, right? Every minute spent on digital debt means that's not a minute spent on creative work. And in a time where creativity and innovation is the new productivity, digital debt is more than just an inconvenience. It is actually impacting work. At the core of work is our environment, right? So let's make this tangible. There's just actually two dimensions. One is time, when we work, and one is space, where we work. So I want to take you on a familiar journey of how these dimensions have evolved over a very short period in history. We're going to go back and start with the post-industrial era, right? We entered this information age after the Second World War. Most of work was centered around this one quadrant, right? Where we're in the office and we're primarily doing synchronous type of work, right? It wasn't that we didn't have actually asynchronous work. Sure, you could create a memo, we exchanged, those types of communications, but it was just very inefficient. So the most efficient way to get work done in the 1950s was get everyone into the office, everyone corralled into a meeting room, and then we shared information. Fast forward to 2000. Boom, the internet has arrived. What happened is that asynchronous work has now been revolutionized. It's become an efficient and accessible way to connect all employees at work. And then came email, right, which allowed us to communicate instantaneously anywhere. And that's how we actually worked for a very long time, right? This in the office, synchronous and asynchronous type of work. It's what I've known for most of my career, and I'm assuming the same for you. But it never stops. In 2020, we had this thing called the pandemic. And the pandemic just didn't invent remote work, right? It had been around there before. But what it did is it solidified it into the most accessible and effective way of working at this time. And it took actually a pandemic to actually do that. And I like to call this period what I coined as the great remote work experimentation, because that's what we're sort of kind of almost living in. Because in the discussions I had at my dinner last night, we're still struggling with how does this hybrid work thing really work? And that's exactly where we're at, hybrid work. It's what we know as work and life today. It's working async and synchronous, the home, the office, on the go. And this is what we've been navigating through for the past several years. It's actually really extraordinary if you just think about it. We've gone from 1 quadrant to 4 quadrants in the span of 70 years. It's remarkable, but it's also complex. And it's not over. Why? Because we're now seeing a whole new evolution happen right before us. And this evolution is artificial intelligence. And it's not a new thing. In fact, artificial intelligence has been around for more than 40 years. But what's happening now is that it's become truly accessible for every information worker out there. So if I was to ask you, where does artificial intelligence fit into these dimensions? What would you say? Perhaps you're feeling a little stumped? Well, the answer is something I asked our researchers. And the truth of the matter is that it doesn't fit in either dimension. It's actually a new dimension. And we've been existing in this 2-dimensional framework, and now we're moving to this 3-dimensional framework right before our eyes. By this, I mean we add in intelligence in our way of working. It's all new. And up until this point, that most intelligence had been framed with us as humans. And the first time in history, artificial intelligence will be right-side human intelligence every day in which we work in a viable and accessible way. Okay, now that is a lot of change in a very short period of time. And you'd be forgiven if you're feeling a little dizzy right about now, because this is where we're at, right? And we need to really, truly sort through these dimensions to understand what the future looks like. So let's think about the common questions you might be asking yourself, right? Or that your employees are asking of you. The sheer volume of answers to these questions and the options is incredible. The very simple question, what is my place of work? For some, it's the office. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4, actually, maybe even 5. Can you imagine that again? We heard that at the table last night, the tug and war about how many days is right. For others, it's actually in their home office or down at the coffee shop. If I was to ask you, when do you get your best work done? What would you say? Well, it would no longer be wrong to say, I get my best work done on a 7 a.m. run. When I'm out on the road, everything is quiet, and I can clear my mind. Or a parent that has tucked their kids to bed at 8 p.m. at night and finally has a quiet time to actually read that article or address some critical emails. And the same goes for intelligence. For a long time, it would have been a human. And now we're moving into an era that the first place that you will go to answer a question or get support will be your AI assistant. And the thing about adding dimensions to any equation that a researcher or a scientist will tell you is that it introduces complexity. And that complexity is truly difficult for leaders. There's a lot of open questions that just don't have black and white answers. And the thing is that those questions are sitting on leadership's desks, and they're having to address them real time. And they're various and they're many, and we need to really figure out how to move them forward. The easiest answer is to offer standardization. Opt for the simplicity of it all. We're actually seeing a backlash in these type of expansions of dimensions. Leaders are going back to a time that just feels simple, right? I hear this all the time in my conversations with certain leaders. But I have a lot of sympathy for these leaders, right? It's not easy. Complexity is hard. But the one thing about multidimensionality is that it's inclusive, right? By the virtue of expanding to all these dimensions, we're suddenly including more and more people into the optimal work design for them. Okay. It is critical to understand that AI is not a tool. It is a new dimension of work. And for every new dimension that is made available to us, we really have to ask ourselves, how do we use this new dimension wisely? For the case of the office, what is the optimal use for an office? For async and synchronous work, what is the optimal or ideal use for a meeting? And the same holds true for AI. How will we use this new dimension wisely? Okay, so this was the research question my team had thought about back in the summer. And as part of our Work Trend Index, which has become the barometer of work globally, we conducted global surveys and observational studies. And we really are seeing that the new future of work is really a world in which artificial intelligence truly is solidified as a new dimension of work. So I'm here to help you understand where that is, and I'll show you what we've been learning. The first research conclusion that we came up with is time and energy deficiency is a problem for business, right? Remember, I shared that stat up front. 64% of employees do not have enough time and energy to actually get their job done. So many people look at this stat and they dismiss it. That's a talent problem. Yeah, we'll address that, but we're just not going to get to it right now. The thing is, we must take this seriously and do something about it. What we saw is that in this 64%, they are 2 times as likely to leave their job and 3.5 times likely to say they're struggling to be innovative or think strategically. And these are real business problems, not just talent problems. And if you have a workforce that's leaving out the back door or isn't having the opportunity to truly be innovative and creative, this is going to impact your business outcomes. So we need to take this time and energy deficiency seriously. The second big research conclusion was that there are reasons behind this time and energy deficiency. The root causes related to this problem, they're in our work environment, is the fact that it's going and moving faster than humans can actually keep up, right? It's a point I made earlier. So what did we do? We plucked that 64% and we put it aside, and then we compared it to the rest of the population to really study and understand the unique experiences and the issues that were evolving. And what did we see in these workers? That they were twice as likely to struggle with too many meetings. They were 2.5 times more likely, they said, they spent too much time searching for information to do their job. And they were 2.5 times more likely to say they don't have enough focus time. So we did the clever thing. We labeled these the work villains, right? Those thieves that are stealing our time and energy. The broken meeting, the information labyrinth, and the blank page. Okay, who out there has experienced one of these villains in their daily work life? We know it. We talked a lot about that blank page last night. How is AI going to save me on that one? The third big research conclusion, we did a deep dive on these broken work problems and tried to apply AI as the solution. And what we saw was that AI is going to refund a significant amount of time and energy by virtue of uplifting these issues. So let's talk about them. The broken meeting. Meetings are hard, and I just don't think meetings are doing what they were actually meant to do. We inherited this meeting structure, if you really think about it, way back in the 1950s. And we really haven't taken into consideration the asynchronous capabilities that have come of age. So we went out and we asked those employees one simple question. What makes a meeting worthwhile? You know what the #1 reason we heard was, I go to meetings to get information. They're going to an hour-long meeting to get 1 minute of insight. I really don't think that sounds like an equitable use of time, do you? No. It doesn't really feel like meetings are doing what they're supposed to do. And if asynchronous work was good for anything, it is good for sharing information. So we should use that. So we took all this information and we set up lab experiments. Half of the population got Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI assistant at work, and the other half did not. And then we asked them to summarize a 1-hour meeting, and then we compared the outcomes. What we saw is a significant refund of time and energy for those who used Copilot. Caught up on meetings nearly 4 times faster with Copilot. Found meeting summarization 58% less draining with Copilot. And 84% said it made it easier for them to take an action after the meeting. For me personally, I use it all the time. And what I love to say is, hey, Copilot, catch me up. And hey, where was I mentioned? Because you know I'm keen to understand what action items I have and what I need to take forward in my workday. Okay, the second villain, information labyrinth. A primary reason we are feeling this digital debt and overwhelming information load. Why is this happening? Well, it's because the cost of information has really come down. It almost costs you nothing to send an email. And it's probably why my inbox is overloaded. So we asked respondents this one simple question. How much information do you consume on a daily basis is actually necessary for your job? What do you think? Well, the average response was 50%. That is half of what you are consuming and using your time and energy on every day is not even really germane to your job. So we did another lab experiment. And we tasked the 2 groups, one with Copilot and one with not, to search for information across a variety of sources, through emails, calendars, chats, SharePoint. And we saw that users retrieved, with Copilot, information 27% faster. And they estimated for that task that Copilot saved them up to 10 minutes. Now, our ability to navigate and wade through all this information will change directly because of AI. Finally, the blank page. The question I would like to ask you is this: what is the best idea you've had recently, and where did you get it? Think about that. Inevitably, people always say, oh, I had this great idea when I was taking a shower, or I was out walking the dog, or I was on this really long run. Well, what do all these examples have in common? They are moments of mental rest. And that's when you can actually cope with that blank page, right? But we don't have mental rest as a huge part of our work model anymore, right? We see this in the data. We don't have time to reset our work tasks, and we don't have enough focused time. So the ideal solution would be to design rest and recovery into our workloads, into our life cycle of projects. But until that, or in the meantime, we have the ability to use AI to help us cope with that blank page, and it's hugely promising. For this lab experiment, we did 2 tasks. First, we asked this group to create a blog post, and then we asked them to produce a set of emails. What we saw was those with AI were 65% faster. And then we asked that blind panel to rate the quality of the blogs and the series of emails. Some had been written with AI assistance, and some had not. And the big question is, when you're operating at speed, does quality suffer? But what we saw is it actually increased quality with the assistance of Copilot. Clarity and conciseness consistently ranked up higher. And 85% got to a first draft faster. So once again, AI's ability to cope with the broken work patterns that are facing us and we're experiencing every day is significantly refunding time and energy. Okay. The big question this leaves us with at this moment is, how are we going to use this refunded time and energy? Hey, there's no doubt that AI is going to save you time and energy, that's for sure. But it's not going to actually have any sort of ROI or business impact or improve the health and happiness of your employees unless you put it to good use. And this is the most important research conclusion. How we use our refunded time and energy is the answer to the future of work. That one big question we asked our Copilot users is to estimate how much time and energy they felt Copilot had saved them on a daily basis. On average, that was 14 minutes a day. And then there was a specific group, about 22%, that said they actually saved 30 minutes a day, or the equivalent to about 10 hours per month. And what does 10 hours really mean to you? Well, what will it be? For your needs, right? For your team, or for your manager? Well, sure enough, we asked those individuals the same question. And the largest percentage said they would apply it to focus work. So I want to leave you with a couple takeaways, right? The first one, it's not a tool. It's a new dimension of work. So I challenge you, as we were having a conversation at our dinner last night, when your CIO says, oh, it's just another tool, we're going to roll that thing out, start sending it out here or there, or, yeah, I'm not going to do anything with that technology, it's just too unknown, you push back and say, no, this is actually a new way of working. a new behavior, a new habit has to form, and for us to actually truly utilize it to help us with these work villains. People matter. We saw this definitely enunciated during the pandemic. And they are suffering from time and energy deficiency and digital debt. Again, I just never seen it come so fast and so much. There is just no way. There used to be this concept of a zero inbox. It's just not even possible because there's just so much information. And we just want a magic wand to get through that. So just know that it's out there and that we need to address it. And there are broken work patterns that are causing this deficiency. And guess what? If ever we needed the cavalier, AI is here to help us to truly unlock the potential we have as humans. And again, I want to enunciate, this isn't necessarily job replacement. This is about augmentation of humans. And the fact of the matter is that I don't have enough time and energy to do the great things this brain and this passion has to offer. So give it back to me and let me add and create value that you want me to do at work. Only businesses that reallocate refunded time and energy wisely will truly benefit from this dimension of work. So that's the question you really have to ask yourself. How will we, as an organization, as a team, as individuals, truly take advantage of this refunded time and energy if we truly want to see the value? Look, I'm a firm believer that this AI-employee relationship is coming at the most critical time. In a world where the environment is moving quicker than humans' ability to keep up with it, we are only going to see a rise in burnout in our organizations if we don't make the choice to usher in new technology that will help us keep up the capabilities as they evolve in this environment. Okay. Just think, what would it be like if we'd strip away everything we knew about work, right? Imagine a world where there wasn't a meeting and it was never invented, or the office space was never really a creation. And today is the first day in the history of work. How would you design work? Thank you. Do we want to take a couple questions? I think we have 1:30. I'll take a few questions. Yes, sir.
So I was saying that most of the time when we think about AI, it's about additional workforce or additional agents that work with you, right?
Correct.
Because that's what we are used to. We are used to basically putting a human Jarvis, if you may, in the space of AI. Now, this dimension part, how does that differ from having that part, the ability to think of them as new teammates?
As new teammates. Well, I think there's an evolution of how that forms, right? First and foremost, I think we have to really understand the balance between human intelligence and artificial intelligence and what roles they play as individuals. I think you'll see that evolve as teams. There will be very shortly a moment in which you feel like we have a team, we're all getting together on a log case or on a project, and there is a co-pilot, and they have activities and and so we will function and work within that team. And then there's an additional phase in which co-pilots will talk to other co-pilots, and they will get parts of work done, always overseen by humans, utilizing their judgment, utilizing the reasoning that's imperative to actually make the whole structure function. Is that fair? Okay.
That is the way most tech think.
Yes. Yeah, and well, and I think that's the key thing. If we really break down work, it's important to think that work has mostly been tied to this human concept. And the thing is, it's just not another tool, right? Outlook, Excel, those are tools. This has got to be thought of as a new way of working. That means creating new habits and changing the behaviors of us as humans and how we do that. And frankly, it's a little bit scary, right? In having a conversation with artificial intelligence. But what we can tell you is, from our research, if you treat it like a tool and like search, the value will be diminished. If you start to have a conversation with it and really give context and really give explanation of what you're looking for and go through that in an iterative process, much like we might do if we were collaborating on something, then it actually will create immense value. Question back here.
So I'm interested, you're raising Gen Zers, and you see Gen Zers coming into the Microsoft workplace. What do you think their values and expectations are at this point? And what recommendations would you make to make it as smooth of a transition as possible?
Wow, Gen Zers. Yeah, I raised 3 boys that are Gen Zers. I will tell you, I'm bullish and excited about the ingenuity that this generation has. First of all, we must understand this is a gig economy. I mean, my sons are always talking about their 3 jobs. I'm like, what do you mean 3 jobs? You know, you thought my dad thought this was crazy. Well, I'm thinking it's crazier that like they are thinking on this multi-dimensional plane of like what work is and how you get things done. But I'm telling you, and we had a conversation over at dinner the other night, that this younger generation's already imagining things you can do with AI to fix, to change, and create opportunities. Much like I remember in the dot-com boom, where everything was dot-com dog food, dot-com whatever, you just couldn't not stop imagining new ideas. That will happen again. There will be bots and things where AI is fixing, changing the way we buy stuff, the way we consume things, and this next generation, hold back. They're gonna be able to do it. And why is that? Because anyone can code. The democratization is happening, and they're learning this. They're going to start learning this way. They're going to get aided. If everyone's walking around with an AI assistant, the world is going to start changing very, very quickly. And that is the one thing I want to leave you with. The speed in which this is evolving is unlike anything we've seen. So now I'm getting kicked off, I think. Are we done? Okay. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.